My story did not start where childhood should have been. It started in the silence I was learning to live in. I learned to read the room before I knew my name. Learned when to disappear, learned how to carry shame. Some nights still echo like footsteps in the hall, and I still feel smaller when old memories call. But I am looking back now with gentler eyes. The child I used to be was only trying to survive. This is where my story begins, not where the pain gets to end it. I was shaped by what I lived through, but I am more than what it did. I carried fear, I carried silence, I carried things too heavy then. But I am learning, I am healing. This is where my story begins. I was not taught kindness in the way a child should be, but I learned what hurt can do and chose who I would never be. Where there was hunger, I learned to give. Where there was absence, I learned to stay. Where there was cold, I kept a fire, small enough to guard, but strong enough to save. I do not blame the boy who learned to hide his heart. He was building shelter with broken, borrowed parts. This is where my story begins, not where the pain gets to end it. I was shaped by what I lived through, but I am more than what it did. I carried fear, I carried silence, I carried things too heavy then. But I am learning, I am healing. This is where my story begins. Survival was my first language before I knew how to speak. I called it being strong when I was only trying not to break. Now I am learning softness does not make me weak, and the past can't explain me without owning every piece. This is where my story begins, not where the hurt gets the final word, not where the child I was disappears, not where his voice goes unheard. I am still becoming, still learning how to live. The past is part of my story, but it is not all of it.